Alrighty, I'm going to open up tonight's meeting for the town of Chincoteague for the month of March. If we could all please stand for the invocation.
Father, Lord, first of all, we want to praise you and thank you for all your many blessings, Lord. And Lord, we want to bless you that Billy's here, and Sister Niece is here, and Miss Ellen, Lord, you carried her through her procedure, Lord. And Lord, we know sometimes we get antsy about Lord, but you've been here continuing each and every day. Lord, we pray for, certainly tonight, pray for Brother Colton, Lord, give him up, Lord, and we praise you and thank you for the day accepted you, your Son Jesus, as his personal Savior, Lord. That's eternal life right there, Lord, no matter what happens, Lord. And he's in your care, Lord, and that's the best place to be. Lord, be with each and every decision we make here. May we do it to honor and lift you up, Lord, in everything we do. Lord, we thank you for this town that still seeks your face. Just go us and guide us, direct us, Lord. Be with our employees, Lord. Give them strength. Put a hedge of protection around them. All of our police officers, Lord. Each and every stop, each and every door they bang on, Lord. Just put a hedge of protection around them, Lord. And just go us and guide us and direct us. For we ask these things in Jesus' precious name. And for his sake, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, sir. Good evening, YouTube land. Ready for another exciting town council meeting for the town of Chincoteague. No public commitment. Can't speak. Public comment. So I'll entertain a motion to adopt tonight's agenda.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I know Miss Ellen's saying aye too. All righty, staff report, Mr. Talbot.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let me first start with saying, and you all have, we've talked about this briefly before, the Harbor Master Vernon and myself gave gave a presentation for the new VPA grant for 2022 on the 9th of February. We did it via MS Teams from my office. We started the presentation with a status report of this year's project, which of course by that time was complete. I used some figures Harvey had put for your last presentation to tell them that we've really done well with that project. All the slips were rented by the time they completed the assembly of it. So we're really looking forward to using that this summer. We stressed the increased economic activity. That's what it takes to get this grant from EPA. And then went on to this year's project, which is to replace one of the wooden finger piers with another floating dock. This year's project total cost is $168,945. That's a cost 25% match to the town of about $42,000, and the VPA's portion would be the balance or the difference in those two. Presentation went well. We got some questions from the evaluators, and along those lines, I want to thank a couple of people who helped us. Mr. Patrick Henderson, in his travels back and forth to Wallops to do progress photos for them, snapped a couple of the harbor, showing these were snapped in January after we completed construction of the new pier. You see that first one there. That was a big help, having that aerial shot. It also, in a couple of the photos that he shot for us, showed the KOA being constructed next door, which we stressed in our presentation, that increased economic activity. KOA, by the way, has requested 12 slips from the harbor, which is going to be difficult for us to do, of course, with all the long waiting list that we have. But it sure stresses the need for more slips to the VPA, and that's hopefully that's the message we got across. So I want to thank Mr. Hendrickson, who was gracious enough to do that. We used some low altitude shots taken by Cole Chesser this summer that really show the activity in the harbor during the peak season. He donated his time and his drone to do that, and Mike Talbert II, he did some construction drawings for us to put in there as well, showing a new pier. So I want to thank all three of those gentlemen. All three of those gentlemen did that gratis. They didn't charge us anything. Moving on to the financial report. Again, we're about where we should be this time of year. We've discussed the CARES Act several times and how that has inflated the numbers, but when you make corrections for that, you can see that the general government revenues and expenses are 68 and 66% respectively, which is right about where we should be this time of year. The harbor, I will note, is about $110,000 in the red until today at about lunchtime, when we received $110,000 from the BPA for the last grant. So now the harbor is breaking even, which in local government is a wonderful thing. When you break even in local government, it's a great day. Now, we still have expenses going on, but we're still selling fuel too. So, and we haven't even started collecting. If you remember, the Harbor Committee allowed us to defer collections of slip rentals to the next fiscal year to get more in line with where we should be in collecting those. So hopefully we can maintain the breaking even line through the end of this fiscal year and then start our new fiscal year with a nice boost in the harbor account when we collect the rents. Excuse me, meals and transit occupancy tax. Meals taxes are still behind, not only for the month but for the 3-year average. Not terrible behind, but still behind about 10%. Transit occupancy tax is ahead, as it has been, and even ahead more this month, because we're finally reporting the 1% increase, which happened January 1st. So February's numbers were reporting the January activity, so you'll see the increase there. It's considerably ahead from last year and from the 3-year average. Most, well, not most, but a lot of it due to the 1% increase in transit occupancy tax. Our new building and zoning administrator, Mr. Mark Biden, reports he is still staying extremely busy. People are still building. He issued 38 permits and did 67 inspections in the short month of February. Things are still very busy. He is reading and studying at nights to stay ahead of all this, and doing a bang-up job so far for us. And I appreciate that, but activity is still high on the island as far as building, which we appreciate. And with that, I'll entertain any questions. If not, Chief Robbie's up next.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, I've included the police department's monthly report in there. One correction, this was made, again, a little early. We had an officer work selective enforcement on Saturday, and he was able to write 10 summonses on that, so we'll have 33 summonses instead of the 23 that was in the report. Everything else looked pretty good when I went over it today. As I said, myself, along with all the department heads, Mr. Rush, Mr. Talbert, Mr. Spurlock, all of us had been meeting on updating the EOP, but I don't want to let Mr. Rush, I don't want to steal none of his thunder on that, so he can update you more on that. Also, we attended, all of us department heads, we had a meeting also on the Antares launch. Thankfully, that went off without a hitch on Saturday. It was a very cold day, but everybody seemed to enjoy it. Looked like everything went good down there at the harbor. People were social, they were distancing and everything, so it looked like everything went good. And of course, we did as police department, we provided assistance with the traffic control and with monitoring everybody there. And then lastly on here, I had that the officers, we participated, in domestic violence training, all of us. We did it over a Zoom meeting. Actually, the training was out of Texas, but it was very good to have training, centered more on strangulation as it's related to domestic violence. Couple other things I got real quick that aren't in the report. After the governor has eased up some of the restrictions, we've decided we're gonna go ahead with our flag football tournament on April the 3rd, starting at 9 a.m. We've contacted all the teams so far. Some of them have got some kids that aren't gonna be able to make it. They're getting replacements for them, and I think we've had one team that said they didn't think they were gonna be able to get their team together, but, you know, if they aren't, we're gonna open it up, you know, and see if there was anybody else wants to pick it up. So that will be April the 3rd, which is Easter weekend, that's Saturday. It'll start at 9 a.m. and we'll run 2 games on this field over here at the same time. And then the last thing I had is I spoke with Mr. Tommy Clark at Don Seafood Friday. We're going to do our senior luncheon. Is going to be a drive up. I believe the Anglers Sunday school class did that back in the fall. And Tommy said it worked real well. So we're going to try to get as many people as we can to call the police department. If you're an Island senior and you wish to participate, call the police department. And depending on the size that we have, I think we usually have around 150 to 200 people, if I'm not mistaken. So if we can have that many, you know, we're going to have them just drive through, and we'll probably set it up on a schedule because we're going to run it from 11 to 2.
What date are you doing that, Robbie?
That is March the 24th, Wednesday, March 24th, from 11 to 2. So we're going to try to get everybody, if you know anybody, any of the seniors, any of them that are homebound that can't get out, we'll deliver to them, which we usually do anyway. So if you know anybody, if you can think of anybody, have them call the police department and let us know that they would like a lunch, and, you know, if they can drive through. I think the way he did it, he just drove them right through the parking lot. We had people that will take the lunches out to them and give them to them in the cars, and then they can go home and eat.
Are you going to advertise that on your Facebook page?
Yes, it'll be going out tonight.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, it will. Both that and the flag football too. Because we'd like to have, I think right now we can have up to 250
Mm-hmm.
per field. Yeah. So, you know, that'll be a good one. We want to try to make some money there for, and of course that goes to the Brianna Kindness Park and all the proceeds from that. Again. That's all I've got. If anybody's got any questions,
We're good here.
Thank you all very much.
Thanks, Chief.
Appreciate it.
As you might imagine, very little Public Works did during the month of February that didn't have something to do with drainage. Just continues to be out of this world, the amount of rainfall we're getting. But a couple things I wanted to note in particular. From the picture here, Mike, if you could scroll down a little bit. Cropper Street. We have a partially collapsed trunk line on Cropper Street. It's draining, but it's draining much slower than it should. This amount of water, which actually runs all the way over to, I guess what they used to call Burton's Field and White Street, is obviously, if they're in the street. Came back next day, it was gone. So we're going to address that collapse line just as soon as it dries up enough to get to it. We tried to expose it, and the water had just gushed out. So we will be addressing that. Also on Cleveland Street, I've identified a low spot. We're going to try something we've actually never tried before, and that's to drop a DI into an existing line. Can't think any reason it won't work, but we're getting ready to find out. The other good news is our ditch bucket finally arrived. Got it installed, it's operating wonderful. Mr. Holston, the lead operator on it, has picked right up and gone with it, so doing an outstanding job. I'd like to thank him. So we are various locations on the island we've done already. We'll be moving around. If you know of any ditch, of any particular need of immediate attention, please let me know and we'll address it. In between all the drainage work, Mike, now if you will scroll back up a little bit to the top, We actually relocated the emergency generator from the firehouse to our Willow Street Waterworks. We had a portable unit over there. The shelter, all the wiring, everything was done in-house by Mr. Taylor and Company, and again, an outstanding job. Makes the whole waterworks much more reliable. Another thing of note, in the middle of all this monsoon, we managed to get started on the final phase of Sarbanes sidewalk on Maddox Boulevard at the 1700. So this is the final phase, and we're intending to run right now Maddox Boulevard between Chicken City and the traffic circle sidewalk. Other than that, I'll be more than happy to try to address any questions you might have.
Any questions? My only thing is, ocean breeze is gonna be a continuous nightmare, especially with all this rain. I mean, I went through there last night and it's,
Yep, you're absolutely right.
it's a
And
mess.
we were down there last Tuesday, I want to say,
Mhm.
and pretty much had every pothole under control.
God, dang.
And I did the same thing late this afternoon, rode down there, and you can't even tell we've been there.
No, it's amazing.
So the material we're putting in there is washing out, but we'll just keep chipping away at it.
That's all we can do.
I guess you do know we submitted all those roads to VDOT for their annual U1 process, they call it,
Yep.
to be incorporated in the urban maintenance program, which we probably won't hear anything on that until May, maybe even June, as to whether or not they're going to accept it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, good evening again. So you received my report in your packet. Mr. Talbert's going to pull up my presentation I had for tonight, and I'm going to just update you on the numbers to close out the entire month of February. And there we go. So total, we ended up with back to, yeah, there you go. 38 calls, which again is 19 less than February of last year. And as you noted, in January we were under. So this afternoon I actually had some time to go back and look at the previous 5 years. And in the previous 5 years, this month and January were both under from the previous 5 years, looking at each year in the previous 5. So then I was able to drill down a little bit more granular as to, okay, what's different? And when I got looking at it, respiratory stands out huge as being way less this February and January than the previous 5 years. So got looking at that, and why is that? So looked at some of the other metrics in there, abdominal pains, behavioral emergencies. All those seem to be kind of par across the 5-year period, but again, respiratory is low. I have no explanation for why that is, but that is the anomaly in January and February, is respiratory. So theory is, okay, flu season. We don't hear many people with flu, and in years past we're constantly out here with folks with the flu, with the respiratory, the pneumonia and stuff. Maybe this is, you know, we don't like wearing it, but maybe it's doing more than what we realize across that. And then with our COVID numbers getting low again, thankfully, we're not seeing many COVID transports. That's the only explanation that I can give to you. What I'd like to say is maybe some of our education from staff to our clientele, you know, of how to protect themselves, or if they have a medical emergency, what they can do in the future and so forth, you know, is lessening the cost, but I don't think that's the case. I think we're looking at an anomaly here because, again, the last 5 years we're all running pretty consistent, you know, busier than this lack of calls. So I just wanted to give you that explanation. Next slide, please.
People aren't, you don't have, the sickness is not at the level it usually is.
No, it's
I mean,
not.
that's across the board throughout, everywhere, because of the restrictions that are in place. We don't have the disease we usually have. for January and February. It's the worst I've seen, which is good. I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
but it's the lowest I've seen in long, ever since I've been live.
And you
so.
should,
That's what I mean.
you see a lot go through, so.
You've limited gatherings to 10 people. You know, the restaurants are limited, but you can't go out and socialize. The bars are closed to an extent, so you're just not transmitting anything.
And let's
So-
not say that too loud, because we want
All
to
right.
get back to our old normal. So also in the report, you know, I want to throw out a couple of extra things here as far as EMS goes, but we're working on some specialized training that has given staff an opportunity over the last month to focus more on that. But our staff, all of our ALS staff, must receive advanced cardiac life support training and pediatric advanced life support training in the course of a 2-year period. Typically, we have to send staff out to get that training. The initial class is a 2-day class. However, when they get into a recertification round, it's only a 1-day class. We've been able to get in-house instructors, so now we are going to have this class in-house. We're going to offer it twice a year to our staff and also any of the volunteer ALS folks over at the station, as well as on the shore that would love to come in and take the class. Right now, we're limited, of course, to 10 people in the class, and our instructors, which with 10 people, we only have to have 2 instructors. So it's worked out really well in order to do this. So I'm very pleased how staff came up and came up with a plan to make this happen. So that was a really good thing. Also, in your report, you noticed the 2 stair chairs that the fire company had an outlay, capital outlay. Both of those chairs together cost a total of $12,015.97. That's one of the old chairs there that you see in the picture. That is an electric driven chair off of a Milwaukee drill battery. And it will take someone my size and even larger, upstairs, downstairs, whatever. We've been using them now for just about 11 years, and we've used them so much they have kind of outlived their service life. So it was time to replace those. So I had my staff members go out to get pricing. They were able to secure that, took that back before the fire company, and we have 2 new ones. They're going to be red this time and not blue. That should show up here in the next 2 weeks. So again, some good equipment that the fire company's purchasing, plus it's going to help continue to maintain some sort of safety and risk benefit for our providers. Next slide, please.
Brian, are they, those stair chairs, are they pretty much set up the way the old ones are? Is there anything new about them? Or?
They're going to be identical, except their color is going to be different. All the mechanisms are going to be newer. Inside them, some of the gears and stuff that we have on these 2 particular chairs are, they definitely have, they've done well, let's just say that.
I always felt like I was wrestling an alligator when I was...
It's different than the old
Yeah.
manual. You're using
Yeah.
gravity on the
Yeah.
manual. On this is completely power.
Yeah.
And you can move a lot, but again, it's finesse.
They're, for those of you that are not familiar with them, you can bring people down 3 flights of stairs easy peasy, and they're pretty amazing.
Structures are not designed to go in
No.
homes anymore. Like
No.
in years past, you would carry a stretcher in the home, put the patient on it. Now you have either some sort of patient mover that you do that if they cannot sit. But then again, if they can sit, you use this, and it saves your back, your partner's back, and it also keeps the patient more safe as well. So
It is pretty amazing.
Are these made of aluminum?
they are made of aluminum, but there's a lot of moving parts on them, as well as if you see some of your connectors, such as here in this is an articulating joint. They're rather heavy. So it does add some extra weight. You do have to use a lot of good mechanics when you're lifting it into the truck and taking it out. But
That's when I felt like I was wrestling an alligator. Actually using it was wonderful, and wonderful for the patient too.
So our monitor defibrillator, that monitor that you see sitting on the stretcher there is a version 1 of the LifePak 15. That monitor does blood pressure measurement, it does standard EKG, does 12-lead EKG, Untitled carbon dioxide monitoring. It defibrillates folks when the heart stops. It gives it that little jolt we see on TV sometimes. That, again, is a version 1, and at the service in January, the technician said this particular model will no longer be serviceable. It's going to be hard to get the parts and so forth. So, working with our regional rep, they did have a replacement program that we were able to learn about, and we were able to get in this replacement incentive program. And the fire company, this wasn't in your report because this just happened in the last 4 days, will be buying 2 new LifePak 15s, as you see there, slightly different design, but the same principle. And they'll be getting 2 of those at a cost of $40,893. So sounds like quite a bit of money, but what I would like to point out, if you were to go out here and buy one, I talked with a company that just got one on a grant in the last grant cycle. They paid $31,650 for one. And we're getting 2 for the $40,893. So that was a big bang for the buck there. Next. You see there the recent drawings of the proposed new ambulance. Again, this came through in the last grant cycle, and the fire company was denied that grant in the cycle. So they are reapplying for the grant. They've got a staff member of theirs that's working diligently. I've been supplying data and stuff to them, and this grant will close the 15th of March, I believe it is. And if you want to go to the next one, please. The unit that you saw before you was a 2022 F550 Road Rescue Ultramatic. The pre-grant total of the vehicle is almost $270,000 for that one vehicle. The Rescue Squad Assistance Fund grant that's being applied for, again, that grant, March 15th, that closes, is an 80-20 grant. So if they were to be awarded that grant, the post-award will be $53,000, almost $54,000 is what they will be out of pocket. So in 2022, they're still going to have a pretty good capital outlay for an ambulance at the 20%, and the stair chairs and the monitors at about 106. If the grant was denied and the ambulance did need to be purchased immediately, you're looking at the capital outlay somewhere around $323,000 for the year. So again, we'll go for the grant, and like I told you last time, we're still in good shape. Our ambulances are in good shape, but they're trying to stay on that replacement cycle. So the award date would be right around the 1st of July if that were to come through. So let's have good, happy thoughts about that. Okay, real quick before we go to our state of emergency, as Chief Fisher noted, all the department heads, we've been meeting regularly to work on the EOP. The base plan, we have our draft. We've got some of our appendices done. We've got a few more things that we have to do, but overall I would say that we're ahead of schedule where we had laid out our goal to be right now. So my goal would be to hopefully have this to you by the 1st of April so that you can start a review yourselves and come back with any changes you'd like to see, and then we can put that in the plan and again be on schedule for that first meeting in June to go ahead and have that adopted. So, all right, our state of emergency. We are again moving forward slowly, but we are making a lot more progress now than we have been, in my opinion. We are, believe it or not, at day 356 since we started this. Doesn't seem it, but at the same time, if you really sit back and dwell on it, it seems like it's day 1,000 at this point. So all your health metrics, again, will be as of 10 a.m. this morning, and they come up here on the screen. So in Virginia, you can see we're still moving ahead in numbers. There's been very little changes other than the deaths. And again, they say that a lot of backlog is caught up on that. If you notice that 1,297 reported today, we've been running somewhere between 260 to 700 over the last month. So that's definitely an increase. But if you look at the statewide 7-day moving average, 7.1%, which is down another 1.2% from last week. So we are definitely heading in the right direction as far as the state goes. In the region, eastern region, we're still running about 10% in the eastern region of the states. But again, not terrible. It's definitely come way back down where we would like to see it. Eastern Shore, in the last week, you see Accomack County had 36 additional cases, while Northampton had 15 additional cases. Hospitalizations, pretty stable. And deaths, one additional reported in Northampton over the last week. So again, all the metrics are staying pretty stable. Next slide, please. Chincoteague, 148. So that's only 2 since last Monday. And again, that's our first increase that we've seen now since Monday the 15th. So that's definitely some really good news. If you look at that time period and the number tested, we're running right around 6% positivity rate, which is, again, lower than even what the state rates reported right now. So, again, we are all doing the right things and moving in the right direction. Next slide. So what now? So 1B continues. It seems like we're always talking about 1B, but 1B is moving a lot more rapidly now than it was a week ago, 2 weeks ago, certainly. 70% of the folks in the Commonwealth now are willing to be vaccinated compared to less than 50% when the vaccinations first started. So we're starting to see this positivity catch on for that. In the eastern region, we're getting about 42,000 doses a day now, which again is an increase that we really like to see so that we can move 1B forward. And believe it or not, there's even some talk about 1C higher up now, but it's still too much in its infancy to really have any details. But the fact that we're talking about it is a good sign as long as we can accomplish our goals in 1B before we try to throw 1C in the mix. So that's hopefully some really good news. Johnson & Johnson, as you've probably all heard, has been approved. This is going to be a 1-dose vaccine. So this will provide some logistical reprieve to the vaccination sites because we won't have to be worrying about scheduling a second dose for folks that are coming in. They're one and done. It's parallel to all the other vaccines, so there's no advantage to getting the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. It's not more superior or anything like that. It's just going to be another tool in the toolbox to help us fight our way through a 1B and move on forward. Johnson & Johnson should have 69,000 doses in Virginia by week's end, is what the report is. And 3.9 million doses are going out across the nation in that time period. So again, that's certainly going to help. Again, folks can call in the number that I gave last week, which was the 877-VAX-NVA or 877-829-4682 to get on a list. Vaccinate.virginia.gov is also a website that they could go to for more information and to register to get on a list. And patience. We still need patience. As I sent out last week, the governor has eased some of the restrictions ever so slightly, but again, we are moving in that right direction and hopefully we'll be able to do so from here on out at this point. So, I've added another one in tonight instead of response and recovery, because that's all we continue to talk about. Mitigation. With the vaccines coming, we're starting to mitigate. With the lessons learned, we're starting to apply them within our response and recovery. With that response, mitigation, and recovery, the goal is to return to as close as normal as possible and as fast as possible, but as safely as possible. Positivity rates decreasing. Small increases in case numbers are still possible due to the variants, but again, not as critical as once thought, but again, something to watch. Local PPE supplies are still very stable, and 1B is rolling out a lot more quickly than it was. And the public, again, remains the key. We all have that responsibility, and the responsibility that we've all taken has got us to where we're at. But keep your group small. Stay out of those settings. The 3 W's, wash your hands, wear your mask and watch your distance. Don't go out when you're sick. Get vaccinated. And I'll entertain any questions.
Good job.
Everybody? Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to agenda item number 8 is the committee reports. Start off with budget and personnel with Mr. Bott.
We met on February 9th and we reviewed the general government, public works, mosquito control, roads, police department, and dispatch budget for fiscal year 2022. That was about what we did. We had several questions concerning various items within there, and then we, pretty short meeting, that's all we did.
And that'll be coming up later on. All righty, moving on. Mr. Gene Wayne is going to give us a report from the Recreation and Community Enhancement Committee meeting.
Well, I had asked Mike Talbot tonight, our town manager, he has already ordered the playground equipment for the Brianna Connors Park. That had to come with a lot of work. I know Donna and Davey Landsberger, all they've worked hard, and that the whole town has got projects going on, there's football games going on, and we don't have all the money, so we need to raise all we can. But it really does look like the Brianna Connors Park is going to become a reality, and that is it's been a lot of people and still going, and a lot of hard work into it, a lot of fundraising still going on, and it's been a blessing to. I've done nothing but have a blessing to work with everybody that is doing something though. You know what I mean? It really is. You just see so much good positive energy in it to honor this young lady that has such a kind heart, and she really did have a kind heart. The next thing we had on we had a request from the Pickleball Association to try to get back into the gym, and we tabled that till this coming the March meeting. And I think we're still, like we're talking about things, we're going to have an aim for gym in at some point where the doors going to be, both doors be open and the ventilation system to be on when it warms up a little bit, so they don't have to run any heat or anything in there. And like you say, hopefully these vaccinations and stuff will take hold where we can do that. It is our aim to do that. Also, going before the Budget and Personnel Committee is Mike's got a estimate for the basketball and tennis court to be redone. There's cracks and like I say, we've had even have tide coming up on one of the courts, and it's got a lot of cracks that need to be taken care of, and that's going to be coming. Vice Mayor Bott's going to bring that before the Budget and Personnel Committee, and the Tennis Association. The officers said they met and they're going to put in $11,000. I think it's close to $30,000 for the estimate what it might.
It was,
for that,
if we do both courts, it's close to 40, just under 40.
So for both of them, and
For basketball
and the tennis courts, and both of them get used, and like I say, it's nice to see kids out on that basketball court, out there, and both of them need some attention. And the Tennis Association said they would put the $11,000 help into it, and we certainly appreciate that. And that's all that I had on my agenda.
All right, thank you, Brother Gene Wayne. Moving on, I'll entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes from February 1st and February 18th. If there are any corrections or changes, let me know. If not, I'll entertain that motion.
So move.
Seconded. Motion seconded. All those in favor of adopting the minutes from February 1st and February 18th, say aye.
Aye.
Thank y'all. Moving on, Mr. Talbot will be giving us a budget update for the new budget.
Thank you, sir. And again, we're reviewing now expenditures for 3 departments tonight. First would be EMS. EMS we've discussed recently in the last few months. You know, we've added some temporary people to our program. Mr. Rush continues to do an excellent job there in scheduling, and if you'll notice, he is way under where his budget should be at this point in time, and that's due to several factors, one of which is the use of temporary, or not temporary, but part-time employees, and the other is we do have a couple of or have had a couple of full-time employees be on the workman's comp thing, which relieved some of our payroll this year. But again, the bottom line is he is way under his payroll projections at this point in the year. EMS is primarily a payroll activity. There's not much other than that in here. And when you get down to the bottom here, the difference in next year's budget and this year's is an additional $41,866, almost all of which is the addition of our new employees and the increased hours in that program. Other than that, I'll entertain any questions on EMS before we move on.
I have one, Mike.
Yes, ma'am.
Why is, in the operation expenses, why is the fire department donation of $21,000 and the VOLSAP for retirement firefighters of $45 included in the EMS budget?
I don't know that I can answer that completely, but I will say that if you'll notice the note I just put on the screen there, the donation, fire department donation is in the form of fuel.
Right.
In the ambulances, in their equipment.
Okay.
So that one needs to be there because it does get dedicated to that activity.
I can understand that one.
Okay.
I know that the Virginia Department of Fire programs, that's just a pass-through.
Yes, ma'am.
But for the VOLSAP for the volunteer firefighters, I don't understand why that would be in the EMS budget.
And to be honest with you, it's in there because it was there last year, but I will check and find out why. I'm sure I can find an answer for you tomorrow.
Is that donation, is that actually cash exchanged, or is that just
No,
fuel?
that's in the form of fuel.
Fuel.
To the fire department's equipment is fueled up at the town's fuel pumps. So the town donates, that's the town's donation to the fire department each year. Any other questions on EMS?
No, I just have a statement. If these numbers are correct, it looks like they've done quite a bit of savings this year.
Yes.
Those kind of numbers I like to see. You know, that's a heck of a difference.
Well, as I stated when we started here, Brian continues to do an excellent job. I mean, his scheduling is always down to the nitty gritty. It's always, we try to economize in the best way possible, and he gets a lot of efficiency out of what he does as far as scheduling and his people. And that translates not only into the budget, but if you go over there during the day, any day of the week, I don't care what time of day, you'll see all of his people doing something, and I don't mean just changing the air in the building. I mean, they are either working on the floors, working on cleaning the building, they are maintaining the equipment, they are inventorying, they are always doing something. I just can't say enough about the way that operation is run.
Looks very good.
Absolutely.
We'll move on to water department. Right off the bat, you'll see up top, salaries are slightly less this year. The reason for that is we've changed the way we do our administrative work in the water department, where we've changed billing. All of you are aware of the different personnel we have in the town office, and we've switched our billing function to reassign that to a couple of other folks, and eliminated the position, an entire position that used to a big part of that. A big part of their responsibility of the position we eliminated was water billing. So we saved some money there and economized a little bit. The retirement figure there, you will notice that that's about $10,000 more than it was last year. Part of that, as we said earlier on, is that we have a 2.37% increase in VRS, which was not accounted for last year because it was unknown at the time the budget was done. And there are a few extra dollars in there due to increased salaries this year. Moving on down to the bottom, you'll see the operation expenses are almost identical to last year. That's what we're projecting as best we can, and we're going to try to hold the line on that as best we can. Capital improvements, First thing you'll notice is that we pay off a water bond this May, make the last payment, and that was budgeted at $177,000 a year for the last 15 years, Art? The last 15 years or so. And that project was to slip line the main water line going from here to our well collection over at NASA. We pay that off in May, so that boosts our budget by $177,000 for next year. We're putting part of that into what we'd like to do is paint the groundwater storage tank, which wasn't done when we painted the elevated tank last year. So we'd like to put part of that into there. You'll also notice that the wireless meter gateway, the estimate in this year's budget was $65,000 to install a new gateway for that system because we can't receive signal from the extreme ends of the island. Harvey's found a better, more efficient, less costly way to do that. So we're taking that down from $65,000, which was budgeted this year, to $25,000 next year. We did take the $65,000 out this year because it was part of the reductions that we made for the pandemic. But we'd like to put it back in next year at a much lower cost, and that is going to be in the form of one tall 80-foot timber piling with a whip antenna at the top of it at the park, at the park, right? EV Ranch, okay. And that should allow us to receive all the meters in the Ocean Breeze area and on the south end of the island, so we will no longer have to manually collect those every month or every quarter. Yes, every quarter. And there are a few extra $5,000 for a new lift pump and a variable frequency drive for well 6, which will help us in maintaining the right amount of water. Running those lift pumps at 100% capacity all the time ends up this time of year when we don't need as much water, giving us more than we actually need. The variable frequency drive will allow us to run that pump at a slower rate and give us exactly what we need. It's fully adjustable. These are very reliable. In fact, that's what was used when the high tank was down being painted. They were using variable frequency drives actually to maintain pressure in the system, and I don't think anybody noticed much of a difference until the tank. So they did a very, very good job. And that's about the difference. You see we have a difference of about $246,000 from last year. Any questions on water? Of course, most of that $250,000 or so is the payoff of the bond. If not, we can move on to the harbor. As I said during my staff report, the harbor breaks even as of today. That's always a good thing. Harbor's another area of the town that's run very efficiently. It has grown, and after studying the last several years doing the preparation for this grant presentation, I can tell you that the numbers in the last 5 years or so are amazing at where we've come with the harbor. I'll throw all of that mostly or a good part of that to our harbor master, who's very attentive to his duties. Let's just leave it at that. Leasing, subleasing, fuel sales, he's on it all. And all of that have increased. We've increased regular rents with more slips. We've increased subleasing considerably. And fuel sales are off the chart compared to what they were 5 years ago. So all of that has come together to make the harbor a very bright spot for the town's budget. Right now, there's not much to say. I've decreased expectations on fuel sales. That's reflected in the revenues for the harbor as well as the expenditures. But fuel sales are They are a moneymaker for us. You can't lose money on fuel sales unless you don't sell it. So that decreased expectations is reflected in expenditures and revenues. Not much else there. You see our new floating finger pier dock is in there at $168,000. That's the total cost. Of course, that all has to be reflected in the harbor, and you will see that our difference from last year is about $50,000 less in expenditures than it was budgeted for 2021. Again, I'll entertain any questions we have on the harbor.
Did we ever, I mentioned it before with the parking situation down there, is there still something in the background we're thinking about parking and availability of the spots and so forth?
Yes, and we're going to take a two-pronged approach to this. Number one, we want to make sure that the parking that's available down there is available, and that we don't have boats on the beach when the parking spots are necessary. That's a big concern. And for the most part, it's not really a big problem. Vernon's aspirations are to have everybody in the water by Mother's Day. There'll be a few stragglers, as there are every year, but we're either going to have to be in the water or be stored somewhere else. And we do have other places we can store their boats for them. The other problem with that is landmass. We really are built out to the property lines, except for what's on the hill. So my idea, and Vernon and I have talked about it briefly, is to put some of the storage that we have down on the pavement on the hill and free up some of the pavement. And we can also actually take some of the, we can also create some parking spots on the hill for certain activities, certain long-term parking activities. So we can make available more daily spots. That's the approach I'm using right now. Again, we're built out to the property lines just about everywhere. We do have about 133 spaces for regular cars, and I believe 39 spaces for trucks and trailers, which of course, if you've done it before, most of us have, it's difficult to get everybody with a truck and a trailer to park it totally within one spot and take all 39 spaces. And that's part of the problem. I don't think those spaces were quite wide enough when they were created. An extra foot or two on each one would have made it much more reasonable. But we have what we have. So, but that's the approach we're using right now. Is we're going to have to probably create some overflow parking up on the hill. Anybody else? Ladies and gentlemen, that's all I have as far as expenditures for our budget. The next time we talk about budget will be out of balance. We're a little over $300,000 right now out of balance, but that's to be expected at this point in the process. All's left is for us to make the choices on bringing revenues and expenditures into balance. And it's the same thing we do every year. I assume we do every year here, and that is to make the choices we need to bring in balance. So again, right now we're a little over $300,000 expenditures over revenues. But I will be probably, I've kind of been buying time a little bit doing the expenditure side of it, because I expected to have some better information going forward as the year got later on revenues. And hopefully by the time we start this, I believe the next time we discuss budgets, our next budget personnel committee meeting, which is next week, I believe. By that time, hopefully we have a little finer tuning on the revenue side of it, which should help us make things a little less hard on the other side of it. So, if there are no other questions, that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you, Mr. Baldwin.
Thank you.
All righty. Not least is comment from council. I'll start off with Ms. Bowden.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I've got one question. A couple years ago, you and I and Mr. Ben traveled across over to Richmond to talk about the inlet study. Is there anything going on with that? Do we know?
I have not heard anything. I know that we've talked to the fella from VIMS, but he has not given us a final report yet.
No, and I did include that project, the study, in the AMPDC's list of projects that they wanted to see for the call group. So that has been included as well, but other than that, no, ma'am.
Okay. I've been thinking about that for a little while now. I know that, you know, that was been at least 2 years ago we went, maybe 3.
I think it's been 3.
I think so too. I don't want to see that get away from us if we can help it. I wasn't here at the workshop meeting. I was feeling pretty poorly after that procedure I had, but I want to properly welcome Jay to council. I'm glad you're here. And if I could, I'd just like to continue to keep Miss Ellen in your prayers. Author's brother Carlton and Brian and his wife and his family. They're going through some trials right now, and keep Brian's family in your prayers, please. And other than that, spring season has started, so go Yankees. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Sure. All right, Brother Jay.
Well, I mean, just by my observation, being going to several meetings and such, trying to hit the ground running per se, looks to me like our town governance is doing quite well. I mean, it's been real impressed with, you know, especially in the times we live in. They just seem to be, they're jumping a few hurdles, but nothing's holding them back from getting the job done, and it's a good thing. Thank Denise for speaking and welcoming me, and just will reiterate what she said, just prayers for Ellen, prayers for Brother Carlton, and prayers for Linda and Brian, and best wishes.
Thank you, Brother Jay. Jean Wayne?
Yeah, absolutely, prayers, Sister Linda and Sister Ellen, and she'll be fine.
She'll be all right.
And this is Dorothy and Colton. And also, believe it or not, this is March, and we're gonna see our island open up. So we certainly pray for a safe, happy, healthy, family-oriented tourist season. I mean, really. I mean, this is with.
I think one just like last year.
Well,
Last year was wonderful.
It was. It really was, and we were. I mean,
We were blessed.
at 10 o'clock at night, you see all these people, and they went to a place, bought a fishing rod. If they caught a fish, they fine. They didn't catch a fish, fine. At 10 o'clock at night, the sidewalk will roll up. And I love seeing that. I'm sorry, it's just so, you know what I mean? But that's what you want. You want that family-oriented tourism, and then that's you know that's last year that's what they had. So hopefully they all come back again this year. Thank you.
Brother Billy?
I just echo what Denise and Jay and Gene Wayne said about prayers for all those folks, definitely. And other than that, echo the thoughts for tour season. I think it's coming whether we're ready or not. So I think it's going to be quite a year.
I forgot to tell you all that the last couple of days I texted Arthur and I said, when all this is over with and we get the green light, can we have a big block party with a bonfire that we can throw all these in and have everybody from all over town just come and participate, like throwing them in to celebrate that it's over.
I'm saving this one.
Put 'em in a barrel. Vice Mayor Bott?
I don't have anything at this time.
All righty, well, leaves it up to me. And I would just like to thank everybody for their prayers for Carlton. He's going through a mess. But that's the way Shinkatig is. I've had so many people from the community walk up to me and ask me about Carlton and tell me they're in his prayers. You don't realize the community we have until something like this sprouts up. It's a blessing to be on Chincoteague. It's a wonderful place. And if you'd have asked me a year ago what we were getting ready to get into, Brian, hopefully this March is not like last March. Holy cow. So all we can do is pray. Hopefully this stuff will be over with soon. 15 days, right?
Yeah,
15 days.
Mark,
ask in 15 days.
Yeah, right.
I'm gonna set a notification on my phone, call Brian on the 15th.
Yeah. All righty, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank y'all.